What's going on, people? It's GBP baby. It's currently 11:55 p.m. on Tuesday the 30th of May. We've reached over 100 subscribers, so we're going to give ourselves a round of applause. And as that happened, my expectations for the week actually got completely eradicated. But welcome everybody. There's no time like the present to be learning, so we're going to get straight into things. Yesterday I stated that I wanted to see price find resistance in this area here at this rejection block and at this bearish order block. This is the hourly and this is obviously Tuesday's trading, and you can see we quite aggressively traded through it. First of all, I do want to state how we did trade through this buy side liquidity as I expected, and then we traded lower as I also expected, but we didn't trade into the sell side liquidity I wanted to see us trade to. You'll see that we stopped here in this rejection block here, and then you can see our price respected that and turned away aggressively. The fact that we traded through this, remember this blue box is a 4-hour wick, so the fact that we traded through it so aggressively and then we came back to it and found support at the 50% level like this is now suggesting to me that it's likely going to want to look for higher prices. So although our expectations were wrong, you see how quickly we can simply change our bias, understand that we're wrong and move on. This is the kind of mindset we need to have in order to succeed in this. So yeah, I guess we're bullish now. It's very important to pay attention to how aggressively we traded higher. If it was just like a little move higher, it would be a different story, but you can see how price really came down, grabbed the stops and pushed very aggressively through this rejection block, completely ironically rejecting it, came down and now using it, and now we found support because volume has closed above it, traded into it and left it. So what does that mean? Well, now it means that we should put our eyes on our next buy side liquidity, which would be here in the short term here, and obviously there's a lot of highs running up into this fair value gap as potential draws for liquidity. Now I would say it's still early for us to be completely sure as to whether we're going to run up there, but in all fairness, like I said, the way it's traded through this rejection block, came back, kissed it all in one day, is really is suggesting to me that it's likely going to want to continue higher. However, the way it's, after seeing this form here, I wouldn't be surprised if price came down a bit lower, took out this south side and then wanted to move higher. So generally speaking, right now I'd say we're probably going to consolidate from this range, from this low to this high. I wouldn't be surprised if we consolidated in this range before we broke out after that. And yeah, this is probably one of the this is a moment where I would say I'm genuinely not too confident in the direction that the market wants to be pulled to. We are going to have a quick look at Dixie and Euro to see how that can help us, but yeah, I also do want to mention that the daily as well, the daily's changed. So this happened last week, but the data that's given to me on TradingView, the way the daily candles are formed actually changes. If you look at last week's Monday video, I think I mentioned it the same way, but it's doing that same thing again when the data changes, and I'm not going to get too much into it, but it does really drive me insane because it's like, okay, well, what should I be looking for? And it does kind of, it skews my perception of price data and stuff. But I'm not, as far as I'm concerned, if we look at the current trading range, we're trading to a premium. It's possible that it could be grabbing stops and is still going to continue lower. And overall, my bias is bearish. So although we've seen this aggressive trade higher, it depends on tomorrow whether we're going to either break above these highs or we're going to start to run into these lows. So at this point, genuinely speaking, I'm not going to really have a side. I'm probably going to stay out the markets until I have a more clear bias. But yeah, it's been quite an interesting day. Came down, took out sell stops here and here, took out sell stops here, traded into this rejection block, and then turned away quite aggressively. Absolutely trading directly through the rejection block and this bearish order block. And it's actually found support at this it's found support at this bearish order block, making it a bullish order block. So this would now act as an inverted order block. But you can see we haven't actually taken out the buy side yet. So although we traded higher away from it, until it takes out this high, I wouldn't consider this, consider this as a completely inverted order block, which is why I'm anticipating prices still come down here, probably sweep out these lows, and there's potential for it to keep to run down. Because again, it wouldn't be surprising if the market making this low here was engineering sell side liquidity, because there's going to be a lot of stops for retail that were put here, thinking that price is going up. No, and then obviously the market would come down for that and use that as liquidity in order to release their stops too. So we'll drop down to 15 minutes, see what we can see. London was where all this happened, and then you can see that through New York, price kind of slowed down. Obviously we were falling all during New York, but you can see we're starting to go into some kind of consolidation, and then it's likely going to either expand higher or lower. But we'll see. Also, if we look at this range from this high to this low, which is where I got the buy side and the sell side liquidity resting. If we look at the Fibonacci, which helps frame ICT's optimal entry, you can see we traded into that pretty much perfectly, which is another reason as to why this potential that price is likely going to turn around here. So at this point, genuinely, it's a matter of us waiting. Preferably, I'd like to see us trade aggressively through this low. That would make me confident that we are going to run into the sell side liquidity still. But until then, I'm just going to see this as manipulation, and I'm just going to wait. So I'm going to jump to Dixie. We'll drop to the daily. And on the daily, we've traded right up to this weekly bearish order block, which is why we had a reaction. I did mark this out on my weekly review if you go and watch that. So I guess this was anticipated to an extent. You'll see we traded up to that, turned away, and now we're finding support at this level here, which is, I believe, on the weekly, it's a inverted fair value gap. So we traded through it on the bullish side. Now we've come back down to it, and we actually traded below it today, I believe. Yep. But we can see how price is finding support above here. So this is what's keeping me under the impression that it's possible we are still going to see lower prices. If price continues to find support above this inverted fair value gap, it's likely that it's going to trade higher, which means that GBP should find ease and moving lower. So although we did have this big move on GBP, it's best not to get too ahead of ourselves. It's best to wait a little bit, because this could simply just be the manipulation, knowing full well that we are going to move lower. Best not to get ahead of ourselves. So yeah, and then we'll look at Euro as well. You'll see that Euro took out some lows and then started to move higher, but Euro didn't trade nowhere near as aggressively as GBP did, which again adding confluence as to why it's likely that this might just be some kind of manipulation that GBP is going through. Like there's some kind of selling or some kind of direct involvement that's happening with GBP. If we look at this fair value gap from here on Euro, I know it's a long way away, but you can see how we traded through on upside, downside, upside, downside. We came up to it again here, and we seem to be finding resistance. So if price, again, if it stays below the 50% level of this, I'd be convinced that we are likely going to continue lower. But you can see that we're kind of hovering with Euro. We're kind of hovering in just above this fair value gap as well, which is why we are in a bit of a consolidation right now. So I'm not going to, again, I don't want to say too much, but overall, I'm going to stay out the markets. Again, I'd like to see this low get taken. If this low gets taken and at an aggressive pace, I'd like to think that we are going to start running into this sell side liquidity, and this was simply just a manipulated move. Furthermore, considering yesterday was bank holiday, seeing this big move like this could be an excuse as to for the lack of action that happened on the Monday. So yeah, I'd say today is quite inconclusive, other than the fact that I want to see this low get taken aggressively. But other than that, I'll be back tomorrow and I'll give you guys an update. Again, hello to all my subscribers, welcome. This has been GBP baby, and we'll take a better look tomorrow at what the market's been doing. Peace.